discovering that proof. But then what it turns out is that what you know of a triangle is not the visible triangle. Every visible triangle in the world could disappear, and you would still know that a triangle exists and has necessary and certain properties that could never be proved in the visible world. As soon as you go to prove the properties of a triangle, you are launched from the visible world to the invisible world. And that also is a kind of stunning reality. But then you ask, why does a triangle have these properties? Do triangles exist? How did I ever find a triangle? You start to ask about the very first definitions or propositions in Euclid. What is a point? Does a point exist? And suddenly your mind goes even further to the very basis of all reality, the forms themselves. Now, I think you're in a position to understand the divided line. So Socrates wants to give us a visual image of what? Okay, what is this a divided line an image of? Here's a shocker. This is meant to be a map of reality. Okay, if I asked you at the beginning of this lecture, I want you to take out a pen and piece of paper, draw me a map of reality, please. What would you come up with? Now think about the achievement here. Our world is constituted, and let's look at the two columns here. So we've got a visible world and an invisible world, and I've just gone through them with the triangle. And within the visible world, we've got this relationship between knowers and the things known. So on the right-hand column are the things known. On my right, your left, if you're looking at the picture. On the other column, we have the knower and the properties of the knower corresponding to the things known. And then we have the thing unifying them. In the visible world, it's the sun. In the intelligible world, it's the idea of the good. And what we see then is degrees of reality, starting at the bottom with the images of things, which are very impermanent, less real, to the visible things, to the invisible mathematical things that launch us first from the visible into the invisible world of intelligible reality, and then to the forms themselves. Socrates assigns a name for each of these regions. So corresponding to images, he thinks we have a mental power, which he calls here imagination. For the visible things, he gives us a mental power, which he calls trust. Interesting word. The Greek is pistis. It gets translated as faith in the New Testament. Pistis. Then in the invisible realm, he gives us the mathematical forms, and he calls the mental ability to see the mathematical objects thought. And then the forms themselves, he calls intellect, nous, intellection. And so now here's what I want something to notice about this divided line. In this picture of the divided line, all of reality is mapped out here. Everything is intelligible. Everything coheres. So the images are always images of something visible. And the visible things are all backed up by a deeper, intelligible reality. So that although reality has degrees of depth and is stratified in this way, all of those things can act as sort of ways of entering into the depth of reality. Now, what Socrates suggests is that back behind this whole intelligible map that he gives us, there must be some cause. And he identifies that cause as the ground of that whole reality. He calls in the Republic the idea of the good. And that then gives us some idea of what philosophy is. Philosophy is to know not just the particular beautiful things, but beauty itself, to know the ground of everything, to know the idea of the good. Just to prepare us for what's going to come. Philosophy builds on this divided line. It tells us there are, in fact, three different areas in philosophy that one can pay attention to and study. And these are some big words now. So the side of the line that is about the nature of things, the images, the things themselves, and the invisible things. The study of that in philosophy is called ontology. You can say it, ontology. Okay, the other word is tougher. There's also a side in us, the knowers, that corresponds to it. The study of how we know, our knowing faculties. That in philosophy is called epistemology. Ooh, that's a tougher one. You can say it. Epistemology. It just refers to the philosophy of the way we know things. I'm going to use those words, ontology and epistemology, later, but I'll explain what I mean again and just remind you. But get used to them. Trust me, you will sound so cool the next time you go to a party and say, that's an epistemological question. That will be a great move. At the top, with the idea of the good, is metaphysics. Metaphysics, then, is the area of philosophy in which we study the first principles of all of reality. So metaphysics, ontology, epistemology on the divided line. Okay, at this point we think, okay, I've got reality. I've got it covered. I see the map of reality. I see it all makes sense. And then